Welcome today to our feature on walking, and more importantly about the benefits of walking and the opportunities around Northamptonshire. My name is Will Heckford, I'm from Northamptonshire Sport, I'm the Sports Development Officer, and I'm joined here today by a local legend with Dave Askew from Northamptonshire Walks, who set up a Northamptonshire Walks blog. And we're going to talk to Dave today about some of the aspects that he's developed through that particular campaign. So, Dave, welcome.
Thanks, Will.
Can you just explain to us, what is Northamptonshire Walks and what can people access from it?
Okay, yeah, sure I can. It's a website that I set up, a blog I set up around about 8 years ago now. It's currently got, I think it's 166 walks in Northamptonshire on it. Perfectly accessible to everybody. All the walks are free to do. We don't believe in maps. It's something that's a little bit different. So all the maps are described by photographs. So we stood here today, so I might actually say to you, do you know what, at this point 6, walk down the avenue here at Great Brington. So it's basically done on a like that, so that families can go out walking, and you could actually give the walk to a child and say, okay, today you're the walk leader, please go out and you lead the walk. So not only have we got about 166 walks in Northamptonshire on it, and there's more being added all the time, I tend to travel, we do a lot of travelling all over the world, so you can come for a walk with me in Sydney, in Melbourne, you can come around the food markets of Palermo or something like that, and all over the UK. So there's about another 150 walks all over the UK as well.
Fantastic resource, really. And today we're here on Walk 6.
Yeah.
So we're doing the Great Brington and Little Brington Circular. So tell us where we're going today, Dave.
Okay, yeah, this is one of the most popular walks on actually on the website and also the Facebook group. So we start here in the beautiful village hamlet of Great Brington. We're outside the church where the Spencer family chapel is, where Princess Diana and all the Spencer family are from. And the walk takes us from here, we go across the fields, then through into the village itself, and then we exit on the south side, go over the hills, fantastic views all the way down to Little Brington, where we actually pick up the road again. Great opportunity to stop for a drink there at the Saracen's Head, I think it's called, or a sort of bite to eat, before we come back into the countryside, come back across, walk down, fantastic views over Althorpe House, and then ended up by walking up this terrific avenue. So it's about 4.5 miles, something like that.
Fantastic. We better get on with it then, haven't we?
Okay, let's go.
Let's go. So over the last few months, even up to a year, it's been really popular, the Northamptonshire Walks, and you've done a number of blogs and articles, talking about the success of the walks. But not only that, you've been quite open and honest about some of your own health struggles. Can you talk us through, how you came about setting up, what you were doing before, and about your health now?
Yeah, well, I'd had a career around about 25 years in banking, quite a stressful job at times. And I wasn't feeling too well, and my wife said to me, look, I think you need to go for a checkup. So a typical bloke said, no, I'm absolutely fine, I don't need to go for a checkup. So anyway, I went down to the doctors, and the doctor said, why are you here? And I said, I've been sent by my wife, basically. So he said, okay, we'll do a couple of tests, and he decided to start off with a blood pressure test. So he said to me, right, we'll take your blood pressure, and his first words, which I'll never forget to me, were, okay, now take your shoes off and go and lie down there. And apparently my blood pressure was so high, I was in that amount of having either a stroke or a heart attack. So that obviously made me think, okay, now it's time to sort of change my life a bit. So withdrew from working so much for a start. My youngest daughter ran a blog, so she said, Dad, you go out walking, you take lots of photographs, you're quite good at writing, why don't I help you start a blog? So that's how it started, and I used to go out walking most days, take the photographs, and I'd be sitting there writing the walks up at night, and my wife used to say to me, do you think anybody's ever going to read this? And I went, no, there's not a chance. And that's how it was really for about the first 6 years. The Facebook membership group grew quite steadily, and then the pandemic struck and people couldn't go out as much, so that's when it all took off. So I think we went from something like 1,500 people on the Facebook group up to what it is today, just over 25,000 members on that. And the website this year is currently around about 630,000 views, so we'll hit 1 million views just on that little Northamptonshire website this year, which is incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable. And, considering where you came from, you know, and that real health scare, you know, that's really inspiring, I think, for a lot of people to take that step and, you know, and to be active. You know, the guidelines for adults at the moment is to do 150 minutes a week of exercise, and walking is perfect for that. You know, you can do it in your own time. You know, the benefits, not only physical but also the mental and social benefits.
Yeah, that's really good. And I mean, I get a lot of people every week. I get lots of emails and messages from people actually, and some quite real humbling emails and messages that say, you know, what my walks have done for them as well. And you know, at times you read it and you think, does all this really happen because of this? And I always say, you know, if just one of my walks has actually helped just one person, then, you know, it's all been worthwhile.
I think this is a good opportunity to introduce a short video which was made by 24 Hour Fitness, and it's all about the benefits, and really helps to illustrate the benefits of walking. It's called 23.5 hours. Take a look and we'll see you back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Evans, and I'm presenting this visual lecture called 23.5 Hours in partnership with 24 Hour Fitness. It's great to be working with people who have a passion for helping others achieve their individual fitness goals and promoting positive change in their lives. So I have a big interest in preventive medicine, you know, which can mean a lot of things from, you know, cancer screening to eating more fiber to having a good social network, and I mean that in the old sense of the word. Weighing less, drinking less, smoking less, controlling your blood pressure, cholesterol, and so on and so forth. So all of these things are incredibly important, and I wouldn't want you to minimize your efforts in any one category, but I want to know what comes first. What has the biggest impact? What has the biggest return on investment? What makes the biggest difference to your health? So I did my research, and I found an answer, at least for me, and it's tricky because, you know, all these things are sort of overlapping. But I picked out this intervention, and because of its breadth, it worked for so many different health problems, and that's what I found so cool about it. So just to kind of walk you through a quick list. So this intervention in patients with knee arthritis who receive 1 hour of treatment 3 times a week reduced their rates of pain and disability by 47%. In older patients, it reduced progression to dementia and Alzheimer's by around 50%. For patients at high risk of diabetes and coupled with other lifestyle interventions, it reduced progression to frank diabetes by 58%. Following over 10,000 Harvard alumni for over 12 years, those that had the intervention had a 23% lower risk of death than those who didn't get the treatment. It's the #1 treatment of fatigue, and of course the kind of outcome of choice there, my favorite outcome is quality of life, which is really all of the above and really about making your life better. And this treatment has been shown over and over again to improve quality of life. So the question is, what's the medicine, and what is 23.5 hours? So the medicine was exercise, mostly walking, so not triathlons. And let me just put it a different way. I think what I'm asking you to do is, if you think about your typical day, so there's 24 hours, and so you might spend most of your day, you know, this varies obviously, but you know, couch surfing, sitting at work, obviously sleeping. And what the evidence that I'm going to show you kind of tells me is the best thing you can do for your health is to spend half an hour being active, maybe an hour, and that if you can do that, you can realize all the benefits I've described in the previous slides. So if exercise is a medicine, what's the dose? So when I think of dose, I think of how long, how often, and how intense. I'm going to give you a slightly mixed message, but essentially more activity is better. But I must say the rate of return seems to decline after 20 or 30 minutes a day. So if you're being active less than 150 minutes a week, or more if you're a kid, an hour a day if you're a kid, my flag goes up in the clinic. So my personal take on this is that you know, the literature draws a very broad brush, and so we see big differences when somebody goes from not doing anything to doing something, and after that the return is more granular. So if we took the Nurses Health Study, women who went from 0 activity to just 1 hour a week reduced their heart disease rates by almost half. So you can break it down, so it can be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes if you want to do 30 minutes of exercise, so it can be broken into 3. If you're only going to do it if it's pre-booked with friends, you know, I have couples that take a half-hour walk every morning or evening to organize their life. A dog is a great walking coach. The data showing 67% of dog walkers achieve the 150 minutes a week just with the dog walking. And finally, of course, your commute, getting off stop early, taking the stairs, and so on and so forth. The next way to think about it is the reverse. So what I call sitting disease. We know that being sedentary is bad for your health, but a researcher named Leonard Veerman wanted to quantify this, and he did so down in Australia in a big study they did there. They found, compared with persons who watch no TV, those that spend a lifetime average of 6 hours a day watching TV can expect to live about 5 years left. I mean, that's incredible. But then I think, who watches 6 hours a day of TV? And it turns out the average adult in the USA spends about 5 hours a day watching TV or screens. So I find this fascinating that we never think of the TV as something that's bad for our health, but clearly it's as powerful as many other risk factors for chronic disease. So I'm going to finish by asking you a question. And this may have some personal challenges for you. So, you might be very busy with work or kids or both, and you may be in pain or have other priorities. But my question to you is, can you limit your sitting and sleeping to just 23.5 hours a day? So whether it's hitting the gym and attaining fitness goals or walking the dog or taking the stairs, get out there and be active. Thanks again to 24 Hour Fitness for bringing you this message.
Absolutely, and I think that really underlines the benefits of walking, and not just the physical benefits that the walking that can do for us, but also the mental and social benefits.
I agree, and I mean there have been days where I've got to force myself to go out for a walk because I don't really feel like going out for a walk myself. But then you come out somewhere like this and you can just stand there and there's a little plane going over somewhere, but apart from that there's no noise at all. The only noise we've got here is the birds. And I quite often describe myself as having Julie Andrews moments, and the thing behind that is the Sound of Music, where she walks up to the top of the mountain and you stand there like this and you go, okay, this is good, and we'll do a twirl.
So here we are, we're just by Althorpe. So we've got hundreds of walks now listed on Northamptonshire Walks, so a brilliant resource for people to go and access and go and do walks themselves. I imagine it keeps you fairly busy, setting those up, but also maintaining those walks.
Yeah, it is. Setting up is the hard bit, really. I mean, if I go out and do a new walk, then it's a case of going out, taking the camera, taking all the pictures. I'm pretty good. I don't need to write a lot of things down because it sticks in there quite well. But then it's getting home, sitting there, and it takes me probably around about 4 or 5 nights to actually get it from doing the walk to getting it actually onto the website itself. And what I pride myself on, it's not just a fact of here's the walk, here's the pictures, go and do it. There's a lot of research goes into it as well. So there's a lot of links into history and bits and bobs.
What's your favourite walk of all this? This is the big question that's come from our Facebook page. People are really keen. What's Dave's favourite walk?
Well, that's an absolutely impossible question to answer because Northamptonshire is just so diverse. I mean, if you look at the different regions, if you go out to the east of the county, then you've got Fotheringhay out there. That's one of my all-time favourites. Basically because you've got the old castle there, that's where Mary Queen of Scots was beheaded, that's where Richard III was born. You've got all the river, the River Nen, or the Nene, whichever you like to call it. You've got all the water meadows. So that's my favourite out in the east of the county. If you come across to the west, then that's what I call the alpine region of Northamptonshire. That's where people say to me, Dave, there's no hills in Northamptonshire. I can take you out there and I can show you some really big hills. So there's a walk there that goes from Everton all the way across to Preston Capes, and then down to around the Badby area, Mantles Heath. Fantastic walking. The other thing that I always say to people is go and walk on the canals, because it doesn't matter where you're walking on the canals, you can do the same walk day in, day out, and you'll always see something different. And then the other big thing not to forget is all the towns and villages. And I think I've got about 35 walks all around the different towns and different villages in Northamptonshire. Lots of history to explore as well.
So not only can you get maps, these mapped areas with photos to go on your walks, you also get a great history lesson of the county as well.
That's right, yeah, that's absolutely right.
In addition to the walks with Northamptonshire Walks, there are also opportunities for group-led walks, the Ramblers Wellbeing Walks, formerly called Health Walks. So these are opportunities for people to get regular activity. The walks themselves last between 10 to 90 minutes. and they're led by volunteers themselves who are giving up their time, to give people the opportunities to be active and be out and enjoy the scenery, and both in the countryside and in the towns across Northamptonshire. So there is a big network of walks that are available for people to access. You can do that through northamptonshiresport.org. In addition, we haven't mentioned it already, we've got Northamptonshire Walks, as we mentioned, with the resources of all those walks through northamptonshirewalks.co.uk. So, Dave, it's been a really difficult year this year with the pandemic, with COVID-19, really challenging for everybody. And we've seen, nationally and locally, there's been a big drop-off in terms of exercise and activity. We're now in Mental Health Awareness Week this week. So obviously a really key factor, is keeping people active, to combat that. Have you had some stories from some of your walkers that you can talk about?
Yeah, I have, Will, and it's actually interesting you say about the health walks, because I know a couple of our members on the Facebook group who are actually leaders of those health walks as well. But no, there's lots of stories coming through about how people, especially during the really strict lockdown, where they're having to walk from their doorstep, and they're having to do that day in and day out. So what we've tried to do is give them different things to look for. So they might go out and on Tuesday they go out, they've got to look for things that are all triangles. Or Wednesday might be a red colour walk, so they might actually go out and spot things that are red and post the photos up and share them with different people. But certainly with the group walks, that's something that we're looking to start very, very shortly, provided we get some good weather. And it's not only, like you say, I can see where we can link in together to work with the health walks as well. Certainly, I get a lot of people come to me that are maybe single ladies that say, I don't like walking alone. So we will look to set up different things for those sort of type of people, or we may have people with children that want separate specific walks. So we'll set up, as well as having general groups, we'll set up specific groups as well.
Excellent. So that's the next steps then for Northamptonshire Walks.
It is. I'm hopefully starting that in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So if somebody's thinking about going for a walk for the first time, it's quite easy. We slip into those habits if it's not regular to make up, not excuses, but there's always barriers to people participating in walks or any sort of physical activity. So what sort of advice would you give them? Is there any specialist equipment people need to come on the walks?
Okay. Well, I think we've just got our answer there actually. But no, it depends, I suppose, on a couple of things. First of all, the length of the walk, and also looking at the weather report. So if the weather report's going to be raining halfway through your walk, then obviously take some protective gear with you. Most of the walks that we do in Northamptonshire can be done in just a pair of normal trainers. Take some water, but you don't need to take full medical kits or anything like that. And the beauty that we've got as well is that on the website, all of the walks are grouped together in a couple of interesting places. So first of all, the spreadsheets, they give you all of the walks by distance and by time to do. So you can actually pick and choose to start off with something, not walking for a long time, that's a little short walk. We also put down on every single walk about the difficulty. So are they hill walks, are there styles, are the walks dog friendly? So if you've got a big dog with you as well, can you get the dog through underneath the stiles? Because you don't want to get halfway into say a 5-6 mile walk and suddenly find you've got to lift a massive great Labrador over a stile or something like that. So there's plenty of information there to do that.
We're very lucky in beautiful Northamptonshire. We've got countryside and we've got town walks as well. Thanks very much, Dave.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, hello and welcome to our series on where to start. So today we're covering beginners jogging. So with me I've got Matt Robey, who's a qualified jog leader and run director for Corby Parkrun. I'm Sarah Harvey from Northamptonshire Sport. Okay Matt, so tell me your story, where it all started for you and how you got into running.
So about 8 years ago I changed jobs, and maybe a bit longer than that. I was sitting down more, not moving around as much. Was feeling terribly unfit, so I joined one of your beginners groups here in Corby under the Jogging scheme, put on by yourself. That's the first time we met Sarah, Tuesday nights, and that was it. Yeah, a group of us, all adults, all should have known much better about looking after ourselves, but hadn't. Yeah, led by 2 other leaders, put us through the Couch to 5K series, and that was good, and came out the other end. And then on the back of that, we went to 10K, and then as a group when the leaders stopped for the winter, we carried on running as a group. We just carried on and ploughed on. That was the year that Parkrun started here as well, so it gave us something to run at a weekend. And yeah, I suppose the rest is history. So the following year, I'd entered some local events, and that was my plan for the year. Was I was going to try lots of local things. There's lots of running events around here, and I was put onto a multi-terrain mud race over in Urchester Park, and that was it. I saw you there. You were running.
I remember. Yeah.
And you suggested that I perhaps look at leadership, which seemed a bit odd at the time, as I was only a beginner. I'd been a beginner myself, but your view was that being a beginner, I'd understood what I'd gone on, and you convinced me. So yeah, I did my leaders course that year and started leading the same year, and I've not looked back. So I've been running 8 years now, leading 7, and then also that kind of led on to running at Parkrun. And because Parkrun needs volunteers, I'd volunteer. And then it turned out I much prefer volunteering at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning than I do running. And so 2 years ago I took over as event director, and now we have 2 event directors. So between myself and Emily, we're responsible for putting the event on Saturday morning.
And so alongside Parkrun, you run a successful beginners jogging
We do,
group
yeah,
in Corby,
here
don't
in
you?
Corby, yeah.
Started back up again now, haven't you?
We have. Now lockdown's easing off, we're getting back, so we're just starting to get big groups back, but we've still managed to do a little bit of beginners work last year, but it'd be good to get a big beginners group going later in the year when everyone's back. But our main focus this year has been getting our existing runners back out and back on the roads really, so all good.
Okay, so you said you're involved quite heavily in Corby Parkrun,
Yep.
you're run director, so tell us about Parkrun, what is it and how people can get involved?
So Parkrun's all-inclusive, free-to-enter 5k event that's put on around the country every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock, yeah, everywhere. So this is Westcliff Park in Corby. This is the site of the Corby Parkrun. You can come, you can walk, you can run it, you can come and volunteer. So if you don't want to run and you just want to get out, come along. Friendly atmosphere, you'll get a whole range of abilities, from really good club runners to just social runners to walkers, dog walkers, people with pushchairs, kids, and yeah, that's it. So it doesn't cost to enter, but you just need to register and get a barcode. Go to Parkrun's website, you'll get an individual barcode, you print it out and bring it with you, and that's all we need. And then we can keep a log of all your times for you, you can access them, all your PBs, and then you get milestone t-shirts for doing so many. But they're all 5k, they're all measured. And once you're registered for Parkrun, you can go to wherever you like and take part. So in Northamptonshire, we've got 2 in Northampton, so Racecourse and one at Sixfields at Upton. There's Daventry, Urchester Country Park, Kettering, and here, Corby, yeah, 4 ones. And then there's also, on Sunday mornings, there's a locations for junior Parkruns, which is for children up to 14. It's only 2k, but yes, same principle.
Oh, brilliant. So people can just turn up one week but not the next, you don't have to commit to every week?
No, that's the beauty of it, because you don't need to book. We have a rough idea of how many numbers we turn up, but have a look. Each Parkrun's got their own website, tells you a bit about the course, a bit about the local rules, whether you're allowed dogs, whether you're not allowed dogs, and then the instructions for briefing. Most Parkrun sites have got their own Facebook page as well, so you can always find us on there. But turn up, listen to the instructions and the local rules, and then we'll get you going and get you running, and then just go out and enjoy yourself.
Oh, brilliant. So it sounds like it's something that's ideal for people that are starting off on their running journey, if they're completely beginners.
And I get people find that quite intimidating, because you will get some faster runners, but come along and see it. We don't mind. If it takes you an hour and you're going to walk it, we'll still be timing you in at the end.
That's
so,
okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. So Matt, tell us how running's helped you. Has it helped you kind of with day-to-day stresses, and a bit of stress release, or any struggles you've gone through in life? And yeah, how's running helped you?
For me, Sarah, it's an escape. So I spend a lot of time, well, until this last year, I spent a lot of time in the car. I do over 35,000 business miles a year, so a lot of my time sat down. So for me, the running out and just getting a bit of headspace, time to think, and it's a social time as well. We tend to run in a group and you can catch up with friends because we're all busy during the week. So yeah, headspace, time to think, get some air in the lungs, a bit of exercise. Yeah, and it's led on to do other things as well. So for me, it's a great thing, yeah, and just to get out and forget about everything else for a while.
Okay, so throughout your time as a run leader, run director for Parkrun, you've obviously come across a lot of beginners, so people that have never ran before. you know, completely new to exercise. Have you come across any success stories that have stuck in your head over the years?
There's a few. All the beginners groups are great because seeing people come from not being able to run and then finish off a 5k, and they may never run again, and we do get that, but we see all sorts, from people who still are not competent runners, and I'd say competent, and that's a horrible thing to say, but I mean, don't trust their own abilities and things, that want to do something special. So there's a lady who runs Parkrun in our running group, not a brilliant runner by her own description, but wanted to raise money for the charity that looked after her grandfather before he passed away. Entered the London Marathon not thinking she'd get a place, and then got a place. So straight from struggling to run 5k and then putting that work and that effort in and all the nights training to go in and then do London, just to have us all film the bits where we see her on the telly as well. So that, and then we've had leaders that go through to good runners, not good runners, that come through and really get the buzz for it and really understand why I do this. They feel that same buzz getting beginners to go and to move. And then go on to lead themselves, so take the same route as I have and beyond. One of our leaders done that, and then went on to do ultra marathons, so doing 100k over 2 days and things like that. Wow. So there's some really inspirational stories, as well as people who just turn up every week for a run and a chat just to get their time. It's all about getting us out.
Brilliant, cool. And so for someone that came along to a jogging group or was starting Couch to 5k on their own, what would their week one look like if they were doing it completely on their own or with a group? A Couch to 5k, how much running would they be expected to do?
Week one, not a lot. So it's about getting your body used to moving a bit quicker and building it up very slowly. The Couch to 5k plans are really good, and there's a lot out there. We have one we prefer to use, but NHS have them. You can find them all over the place. But it's about gradually building up so that it's not so much of a shock that you don't get it running and have to think, I've got to run for 45 minutes to start off with. So nice and gently. If you're on your own, just follow what he says to do. If you're with a group, there'll be someone, you know, it's very easy to do it together, sort of egg each other on, keep each other going. Or if you're doing it in a led group, like one of the Jogging Northampton groups, there'll be someone who knows what they're doing, just to try and encourage you to get on. But doing it as a group, doing it as a solo, it's all good.
Okay, so Matt, you've now got about eight years running under your belt now. So what is, if anything, what do you know now that you wish you'd known as a beginner?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think back to our group as well, where we had right early on, and it's something we see now, is reflects in every group, the fear of what's coming next week in the group. So we work to a strict plan. Say strict, we can modify it, but we work to a plan. We know what we're doing 1 week, and then we'll up the minutes and maybe the intervals the next week and things like that. But people, there's a fear of, well, I've really struggled this week. So what am I going to do next week? If I know what it is and it sounds too bad, I won't turn up. Yeah. And then you're always thinking about what it's going to be. I'd like to be able to go back now and say to myself, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You'll
cope with it.
These people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is why you get people like experienced runners and people who've done it before to do it. Yeah. It's a written plan. Have a little faith. It'll be okay. They won't ask you to do anything you won't be able to do. And as long as you get that practice in, and that's key. So get the practice in, you'll be all right. Yeah. And there's not a lot else really, but the one thing I think, and probably applies to beginners as well, is legs. You start, as the more you run, things start to hurt, and you put you down to new exercise and not knowing these things. And we often hear terms of, I've got shin splints and things like that. Yeah. But it's understanding your leg is a machine as a whole. So if you have a tight calf, you will probably start getting knee pain because your calf is so tight, it has no flexibility. Your knee starts to take that load. So, and then we teach stretches, but there are so many more stretches and so many other things we could teach. So I wish I'd known more about that. So foam rollering, exercises for a foam roller. We all hate foam rollers as runners, but they're really important. So foam rollers, lots of stretches, and also maybe other exercises. So things that supplement your running. So conditioning things, maybe Pilates or yoga or anything that works on your core as well. So I wish I'd known that back then as well. It sounds like a lot to take in, but as you start to run more, these are the things you learn. And if I'd known them back then, I think probably I could have taken better care of myself.
They would have helped. Yeah. If you could give any advice to new beginners, what would it be? What would your best advice be?
I think there's a lot of things, and a lot of these you'll learn, but I think for ease of learning to run or learning to jog, then the group. If you can do it in a group or with a friend or a couple of friends, it's much easier to keep going than doing it on your own. We find when you run on your own, that little voice gets in your head, I can't do this, or I feel really out of breath. When you run with a group, it tends to be more social. You talk, you manage your pace better, and you egg each other on. You're more likely to go out if there's a few of you trying to get out. So groups, if you can do a group, we have lots of local groups in Northamptonshire, which is great, or go along to Parkrun. You'll probably find runners that are the same pace as you that you can get talking to, or you'll see week in, week out, and arrange to go outside and things like that. So try and get out with somebody else. It makes it easier. And then as you go on, there's other things. I think we see a fear of being last. So, you know, people need to understand that when you start running, a lot of these runners have been running for years and from school and proper athletics clubs and get out 2 or 3 times a week, if not more. So your competition's against yourself. So that you need to understand that as well, that we're not going to train Olympic athletes. Yeah. So not 40 or 45, whatever age you are. So get out, just do it for yourself. Don't worry too much about your times and what everybody else is doing. And even to enter events, because there's such a buzz comes from a running event, and they're so supportive. Even of the people who come in last, second to last, go. Don't be scared of trying new things, I'd say. So enter events, don't worry about it, just go out and enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Then before you know it, you get the buzz for it, don't you?
You do. You understand why these people get up at that time in the morning and go running for it. So yeah,
for that shiny medal.
Yeah, we do it for the medals. Yeah.
So one thing that always comes up with beginners and starting running, and I think sometimes puts people off, is the kit. Any expectations, or thinking that they need to have the right gear and some fancy trainers, and what would you say to that?
For beginners, a good pair of trainers. A good pair of trainers, I'd say. Yeah.
Just some comfy shoes, comfy trainers.
A pair of tracky bottoms and a t-shirt, or a pair of shorts if it's summer, a hoodie. You know, you're going to get sweaty. You're probably going to get rained on. To start off with, now just a good pair of trainers. Nothing too old, too knackered. If you can get something new and a bit broken in to start off with. And then as you progress, if running something you want to do, then you can go and look at get fit for a pair of running shoes, which is quite expensive, but almost, if you're going to do a lot of miles, one of the things you should be doing is getting a decent pair of running shoes. But to start off with, no, just a good pair of shoes, good pair of trainers.
You don't need to spend a lot of money then,
You don't. And you enter a lot of races, you get race t-shirts, you pick up shorts, you know, whatever you feel comfy in. Some people always wear leggings and a big jumper, whatever, you know, you're going to gain stuff as you run anyway, so and you'll see long sleeve tops, short sleeve tops. The more you run in the winter, you'll want woolly hats and things like that. You'll pick it up as you go along, but not to start. A good pair of trainers, and that'll do you.
Thank you. So that concludes our interview with Matt on where to start with running. Hopefully it's given you a bit of advice and a bit of a starter if it's something that you're keen to get started with. So thank you, Matt.
No.
And for any more information, if you go to www.northamptonshiresport.org. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Harvey from Northamptonshire Sport, and today in our Where to Start series we're covering open water swimming. So we've got Heather Watts with us today, who's going to answer a few questions about where to start and the ins and outs of open water swimming. So thank you, Heather.
Hi Sarah, that's all right.
So tell us about your story, how you got into open water swimming, or where it started for you.
Yeah, so I grew up on the Norfolk Broads, so I spent a lot of my childhood just in or on the water, you know, growing up. And then I started doing triathlons when I was 40. So a lot of the shorter triathlons are pool based, but the swim section is also in open water, and obviously some of them are sea swims as well. So that kind of was what really started me. So that sort of kicked me off, but I basically got bored of pool training, and then decided that I would go into more swimming in open water. I got bored of taking on and off wetsuits, and if anyone's ever tried to put on or take off a wetsuit, you'll know that that's a challenge in itself. 3.5 years ago I decided to completely ditch the wetsuit and start swimming in just a swimsuit. But you don't have to start your open water journey there. If you want to swim in a wetsuit, that's absolutely fine. Just jump in and have a go.
Brilliant, good stuff. I remember doing you roped me into a beginner's triathlon, didn't you? So
I did, yes.
I'd never done it before, and I turned up with a mountain bike, didn't I?
Yeah.
And you encouraged me to do that in the pool, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I was a complete beginner to it. Never tried it before in my life, had I? So you said you've now braved it and ditched the wetsuit and just going in a swimsuit. So what would you say to anyone starting out as a newbie in terms of kit? What kit they'd need, or is a wetsuit essential, or what would you recommend?
I think a lot will depend on what time of year you start. So obviously if you start in the middle of winter, you're probably going to want to start with a wetsuit. But if you just want to have a go, and it's sort of any time from sort of May, June onwards when the water starts warming up, best advice is get a swimsuit, get something you're comfortable in the water in. Some people will wear just some sort of 3/4 leggings, that they'd wear for running, and a t-shirt. You don't have to go out and buy new kit. And just give it a go. So again, in terms of goggles and things like that, if you're going to do heads up breaststroke, not everyone will want to do crawl. If you've got goggles, great, but if not, you're going to keep your head out of the water. The only thing I would recommend is probably a brightly coloured hat and probably a tow float, purely for visibility, depending on where you're swimming. And some of the open water venues will insist, especially if you're not wearing a wetsuit, that you have to swim with a tow float. Again, it's for health and safety reasons. So, but there is so much kit that you can buy, and the more you get into it, you'll see people wearing things like these dry robe jackets, towels, changing kit, warm clothes, all sorts of kit. So
but you don't need it to start out.
You don't need it to start out with, no. The best thing I'd recommend is, going to a venue like Sywell here or Daventry, just speaking to people. There's a mountain of advice out there, and all of the volunteers are more than happy to share that advice and help you out. Brilliant. So I'm just going to have a look down. So again, in terms of winter swimming, you might want to invest in neoprene boots and gloves, and for your hands and feet. The extremities obviously get the coldest first, so people, if they can keep those a little bit warmer, might just allow them to stay in for a little bit longer. One thing I also would recommend is, if you are wearing a wetsuit, is to make sure that you wear something underneath.
Right, good tip.
More for modesty when you're getting out and getting changed, but also it can help stop chafing. When you're actually swimming.
So it's all these things that you don't know until you start it, do you? Until you try it and stuff. So.
There's a whole range of wetsuits if you do decide to go down the wetsuit route. There are swimming specific wetsuits. If you go and get a surfing wetsuit or a windsurfing wetsuit or something like that, you'll probably find that it rubs in all the wrong places because they're built differently, and they'll tend to be a little bit thicker. So again, with a wetsuit on, you perhaps will feel a little bit restricted because you won't have the same movement. But it's just trial and error. The one thing that a wetsuit does give you, obviously, is a little bit more buoyancy. So if you're not very confident in the open water, then you might want to consider a wetsuit. Obviously, the one big difference between pool swimming and open water swimming is that you might be a fully competent swimmer in a swimming pool, and you've got lines to follow on the bottom, the water's nice and clear, but in this kind of environment, very often you can't see the bottom.
Can you touch the bottom, or often not?
You, again, in places like this, towards the edges, you can touch the bottom. Some of the places we swim on the Nen, you can touch the bottom, but very often you can't. So that's obviously a little bit scary for people, especially who have come from pool swimming, because they're used to being able to get their feet down. And the other thing is, obviously, with not being able to see, if you are doing front crawl, it can be very disorientating. But that's all things that you can overcome. Speak to people, just take your time,
Cool.
Come and enjoy it. It is a very different experience.
Brilliant, thank you. And you mentioned about breaststroke. So people, breaststroke's okay. You're not expected to do a certain, it doesn't have to be football or.
No, the only thing a lot of these venues ask you not to do is back crawl, because obviously if you're going backwards, you can't see that people that you're coming up to and approaching. So again, it's a health and safety thing. No, you can basically do whatever stroke you want. Front crawl, breaststroke, and a lot of the venues also, you'll see here, there's a buoyed course, so you know your distances that you're going to swim around. You don't have to do the course in a lot of places if you're just getting in for the first time. Again, especially here at Sywell, there's a place off to the left hand side. You can literally just get in, get a feel for it, come back and get out. So very, very safe.
So for people wanting to give it a go, would you say that they need lessons, or can they just jump straight in?
I think a lot of that will depend on how confident they feel. There are lots of groups on Facebook, so if you just type in as the search, wild swimming or open water swimming, you'll find copious amounts of local groups, and then obviously you can start up with a conversation and arrange to meet them. There are lots of other options. Obviously some people might feel that they want to have a one-to-one lesson with someone, and there are lots of local places again where you can book local lessons. If you're looking for something, again, coming back to the cost, that's a little bit more cost effective, you can have group lessons. So that's where you've got one coach working with 3, 4 or small groups of people, and that will work well for a lot of people. Again, you'll find information on the venues on what is available and where's available, but just find people to talk to, and then you'll have no trouble finding the information that you need.
If people are confident in the water but not quite ready for the open water, is there anywhere that they can go that's sort of a middle ground or an in-between before they're ready to?
Yeah, definitely. If people are confident swimming in swimming pools, but they don't want to jump into a river or a lake, and they're not confident, going and speaking to people, the other option, or the middle ground, is open water swimming pools, or open air swimming pools, Lidos. There's 2 or 3 in this area. There's one in Peterborough, there's one at Woburn, and there is another one in Cambridge, Jesus Green. Some of them are heated, some of them aren't, depending what time of year it is. So again, another great option if you want to experience swimming in cold water but you don't want to jump into a river.
For anyone wanting to start open water swimming, where would you recommend that they, where can they go?
So locally, I would recommend probably going onto the Northamptonshire Sport website and going to either of the 2 venues that they're now up and running. So one being at Sywell and one being just recently opened at Daventry. They're fully lifeguarded, both on and off the water. You can't find a more secure location. There are other locations in this area, Rutland, Bedford, and I'm sure Sarah could probably put some links to those on the website. So
lots of options.
Lots of options. Again, nothing that if you type in open water swimming you probably wouldn't find in a search on the internet.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So if you head to www.northamptonshiresport.org, and there'll be information on the Sywell Country Park and Daventry. And head to the open water swimming section from there for more info.